We know that the Beatles think they are God and that they can do no wrong. And that as for their fan base, this is also true, provided that there's no very serious evidence of wrongdoing on their part. Whether they would have the impunity of Donald Trump or not, if people knew what they'd done, is an open question. But Peter Gabriel, when things get manipulative and obscure, they also get very riddlesome. And he keeps in his jetpack a mongering known as R.D. Laing, who was a popular psychologist who wrote a book called Knots that was the basis of Gentle Giant's song Knots. It hurts him to think that he is hurting her. In other words, they get things twisted. And since they speak with forked tongues, and you're supposed to believe both tongues, people celebrate the reinterpretation of modern garble that they serve up from their Swami Nostra seance. And I don't expect there to be much welcome or reception of attempting to bring some sense and decency to these shenanigans. But there is some question of whether three groups I'll talk about. Reagan and Paul McCartney is one of the groups. And the people you would associate with the whirlwind of charisma and celebrity and power that they have. Another is the Franklin Graham Foundation, the Billy Graham Foundation, and the religiously sincere Christians who may or may not associate with those people. And then you have Seattle's UW Dialectical, the ever-present Ripper Hatters, who service these various purposes. The question of the video is, would they knowingly cooperate with what they've done if they knew that the people they were following were convincing them of a false front to get them to do it? And there's one example for each. In Reagan's case, if he came right out and said, yes, I killed Kennedy on release dates, fuck you, so what, would people cheer? Which is what seems to be more or less Trump's rite of passage is to get to that point. In other words, if they knew that he faked his assassination, of course, the question of did he fake his assassination attends that. Because faking his assassination is how he got the alibi that makes them go, no, we don't need to consider that issue because he really was shot, and therefore he's exonerated from everything. And so we can go and follow him going along with this good plan of releasing Yates and killing the Kennedys, which the plan, it clearly exists. And this falls into the wormhole of John Lennon. In the case of the Graham Foundation, if Billy Graham knew about Gail Burstyn and the gang who attacked and tortured me. Now remember that Franklin Graham said that humanist is the greatest threat to democracy since communism. My father wrote a book called Humanizing the School. So I was, in his view, genetically a humanist. That's why his groupie, Sean Brooks, locked me out of a church in all likelihood. Anyway, it's symbolic. Did they lock me out of the church? Would the people who followed him know? Like when Gail Burstyn met Walter Hodorowski, she took me to Prick Up Your Ears, which is a gay film, and Kiss of the Spider Woman. It's a double feature. And Billy Graham's secretary was named Pre-Cup, like Prick Up Your Ears, Pre-Cup. Now, the most sensible Christian I talked to in my transit between Pittsburgh and Seattle, trying to get away from the gang, said, if the gang, if you appease them and said, okay, I forgive you, would they at least leave you alone? Now, this doesn't seem to me like a woman who would go along with the Graham. She was a member of the Graham Foundation. It didn't seem to me that she was the kind of woman who would go along with it if they were go along with the Graham Foundation if they were inside making the decision to do that to a child. And just as I don't think most people who are normal, even if they were loyal to Reagan, would consent in agreeing to go along with Reagan if in fact he killed Kennedy, which the evidence shows he in fact did. And I'll get back to that, which is why he needed the shrewd alibi from the wormhole of John Lennon. And then the third is, of course, Seattle. When they build this, the rest of the tape is going to be about what they meant by building momentum. So Seattle is very important. In my opinion, Seattle spread AIDS deliberately. They can't get enough of it. They're straining at the leash with desire to inject somebody. The way that Israelis killed Palestinians. Blah, 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 blah. And then they said, no, we are the victims. We are the victims. In the same way that Reagan killed Kennedy and said, no, I'm the victim. I'm the victim. In other words, I believe that many of these perverts know what they're doing. And they don't. And I don't believe that this woman who I met on the train was remotely insincere. I do not believe that I believe she she would take as a matter of faith that the Grants would never do that to little Jimmy. I believe that the people who hate me for fingering Reagan genuinely believe that about Reagan, that he would never do that he was a victim of the same thing as Kennedy, that he was manipulated. That's where I was coming from. That's what I believe. Just as I believed that the gays were magnanimous, decent people, I no longer believe that. Of those three groups, I think the heavily weighted, the most perverted of them is gravely Seattle over Reagan loyalists and over people who have faith in the Gramps. I believe that most likely the deviants, the licky chops, we just want to get the money. We're going to get the money one way or another. Who would side with any of the above if it would get them the money? It's predominantly Seattle. That doesn't exclude the possibility that somebody could be appalled from Seattle. I'm not saying that it's not possible that a Beatlemaniac would get sick of what Yoko Ono has been pulling. Absolutely despise her for what she's been doing. I'm not saying that's impossible. Okay, now what I want to discuss is, of course, what Seattle means, what they claim they think they're doing, or maybe what some very small fraction of them believe they're doing in building momentum for this crowd that went and ran rapine over Gaza. Seattle must be just busting their belt with pride in themselves over that. Pertains to the question of not sincerity and would they choose if they or would they be ambivalent? Would they question Reagan if they knew he killed Kennedy? Would they question the Grahams if they knew that he had attacked a child for being from a parent who was a humanist? Would they question the Beatles if they knew that they were advocating for the people who started AIDS? But rather, the question of silent approval. They knew and they don't care either way, so they're still going to approve of Reagan. They knew and they don't care either way, they're still going to approve of Billy Graham. They knew and they don't care anyway, and they still want the money for Seattle Art Museums, no matter how many people get River Hatter bystanders for being white, black, green, blue house, Italian, who knows what the smorgasbord of tokens can think up at UW Dialectical. Silent approval is the question of this. Now, what we know from looking at the killers of Reagan is that there's a revolving door between reality and fiction. You're supposed to say it's only a movie, but is it only a movie? Is the underlying question that traces back to Fayum, D'Annunzio, Mussolini, Italian futurists, and D.W. Griffith, the people who made Reagan's films. Is it really only a movie, or is it a snuff film? Is there an interaction going on? Which, of course, is what my research proves there is. So there's a crossover from the room behind the revolving bookshelf, so to speak. And of course, Brian Eno is back there, teaching people Braille who are willing to Aaron Bushnell themselves, whether they like it or not, or who Wiener is going to summon Beatles euphoria to get them to light themselves on fire with, and so on. Okay. The key incident crossover question pertains to the framework that exists in the film Diva, the film Brother, the film Sea by the Sea, and in the Telltale clip. Okay, and the question of whether or not the Lady Panther Dixon article from Pitt with the Green Party Donahue signifier on my father's obituary is the nexus point of the crossover between Hollywood and fiction, that in this revolving Hollywood and Hollywood as fiction and reality as being prepared to convey. Hollywood is being used to convey a message about something that happened in reality, in real time, the way that we monitor genocide in real time through TikTok. Are these things actually monitoring systems? The so-called fictional movie of Diva, Brother, Seen by the Sea, or these so-called fictional movies actually monitoring systems of a genocidal war game? And we know from the Telltale clip that Two Virgins Pussy Ball is the name of the war game that was clocked to the AIDS attack. And Diva is Token Diva. She's a black woman in Diva, and the script is in the kids' mailbag. And they use my birthday, October 20th, the way they use 1984 for my social security number. But the other Diva, the trade-off Diva, is which, he goes from Paris to Madrid on a moped or something. And she says, "You are a real fan." The only English line in, like the way Marcel in silent movie says, the only person who says no. You have the connection with my birthday and the hitchhiking adventure from Pittsburgh to St. Louis. Oh, so you are a real fan. So you're really caught up in this invisible super production system, or your queer ball. And they say it, and bouncing it back and forth in the crossover between media. And the key incident is this one night stand that was the Muslim Zionists and John Schulman and Pitt Panthers and the NAACP put together to impinge on a persona. They impinged this, and they said, let's make pretend that this was true in order to prevent capture of the Epstein genocide porno made on Mount Desert Island by Yoko Ono. Let's perpetuate this pornographic entrapment and pretend that it was really a cross-racial adultery, in the sense that Bobby Yindle is Barack Obama's closest continuer. I mean, he may be Indian, but he's more like the black man than he is like a deaf white suck. So the black man gets the diva Maduri Goto, who's the star of the The Telltale clip symbolizes all this. It's perfectly clear what they're doing once you learn familiarity with the key images and the repetition of the key images in the context in which they're repeated. But Thaz announces the great Svengali decree of good druggy ethic. Now, where do we get that? Is from the Swami. John Lennon himself says, if I told children don't use drugs, they would say, who are you? And what's the message? Children, you're supposed to say, who are you? So when they make a movie called Kids, where this child sleeps with a girl who's also a child and deliberately gives her AIDS without her knowing it, and they're supposed to go, oh, that's so Yoko Ono, that's so Yokonis, that's so Patti Smith, that's so Kosher, that's so Elmo, Gummo. It's they set the stage for this idea. How are you going to stop them? It's going to say, hearing you. Because John Lennon, well, to understand John Lennon, you have to follow who was casing me with Penis Gabriel. When Gabriel wrote to me in Allentown was John Stockwell, the CIA. And John Stockwell, the CIA, although he denied knowing what was going on, said that the CIA is not about to subject themselves to a class action suit for deadly drugs by making MK Ultra a war crime that's prosecutable by the International Court of Justice. And likewise, the Beatles aren't going to. And John Lennon's Escape Act is Houdini, where they blame the people who he says would have said, who are you? And if the children don't accept responsibility, well, they don't get the token badge of fidelity to the great Swami. See how it operates? You have to be like the great Swami. And Gail Burson says, nearly killed me. Swallowed it, forced me to swallow. She has the language captures of what they really did, which would beat my brains and drag me through glass, terrorize, traumatize me. And I said, please don't force me to do cocaine. They said, who are you? That's the reality of what that was. You're a mask. You have no face of your own, is what they said to me. So that's the reality of what they're doing. So, and they put out a movie called Prick Up Your Ears. And after making me deaf. Now, they have a school book lawsuit going, and these guys are the good guys. They're pushing the kids like lemmings. Oh, be brave, be good. We will never be steadfast. Be like Aaron Bush now. And it's like, don't accept any intervention information. Don't listen to anybody who tells you to protect yourself, to take care of yourself, not to be evil to one another. Don't listen to that. Say, who are you? And you'll get the John Lennon badge of Yoko Ono approval. And if you don't, if you start to question the crossover system that exists in the revolving door between the way media presents reality, what is reality? A good example of this language index system is Rather. If you don't do what they would rather you believe. Dan Rather comes down and says his head is violent forward, which is the opposite of what he and only he saw. He was the only person who saw the movie, which is it goes violently backwards. You see? So they made reality reporting the opposite of what is true. And this is a pattern in the crossover system, the revolving doors of key incidents. So to understand the way that Seattle set up the Lady Panther entrapment for the Muslim Zionists of two versions, Pussy Bowl and the AIDS attack, you have to recognize the symbolism and the importance of the key incident to the presence of telltale information, the telltale clip in Diva, Brother Seen by the Sea, that accompanies this real-time genocide crossover turnstile between Hollywood and cinema, because the phenomenologists and the eschatologists and the demonologists and the spiritualists and of course the celebrity superstate who want to keep what they're up to mega private, like Mick Jagger and Roger Waters, a poor nothing so much as evaluation by academics. They don't want people to understand what's going on. They want them to be in the raptures of contradiction and what they call knots and puzzles and twisters and all this stuff, so that they don't understand, so they fail to understand. While the theologists demonize the TV set, the pornography, and they have the man who played JFK in PT 109, Cliff Robertson, and then went above the World Trade Center on 911, who was tied to a woman named Dia, who I knew at the governor's school. And Dia Gauls is, of course, an important figure in this Kim Kardashian crowd. Cliff Robertson was in the premiere episode of Outer Limits. Remember, Not Take Control of Your TV Set, which was delayed for Candy's state funeral. And the TV set is a pulsing orb of mysticism in the premiere episode. So the Zionism is the TV is going to get you. Zionism of the TV. And the script had George Romero from Night of the Living Dead's name. I mean, you're not allowed to be questioning, why aren't they stopping this? Why aren't they warning people? Because Seattle's building momentum, man. Seattle's building momentum, man. Seattle ain't no crosser. Ain't no telltale clip. We're going to get that money. You snitched on John Schulman, man.